Hi, class, and welcome to our presentation. This is a look into Adlerian therapy versus transactional and analyst therapy by Deja Keller, Sebastian Figueroa, and Shardia Stanford.
So to begin, we're looking at a background in Adlerian therapy. Alfred Adler, who was a member of the famed Viennese School of Psychotherapy, introduced the concepts in 1911 and developed them until his death in 1937. And they were originally developed under his title, Individual Psychology. And this broke with the other psychoanalysts at the time, especially Freud and Jung, where Freud placed an emphasis on early developmental experiences, the internal drive, so that would be Eros and Thanatos, the divisions of the ego, like the superego, the id, and the ego, and the unconscious. Adler emphasized future experiences in terms of goal orientation, social drives, whole, or seeing the individual as a whole, and action awareness. Adler also believed the individual is a unitary, goal-directed, and creative self. Traditionally, Adlerian theories place the importance on birth order and early social interactions, which is opposed to Freud's psychosexual development that I mentioned earlier, and their influence on the development of an individual's personality. The whole of Adlerian theories emphasize every individual's need to belong, feelings of inferiority, and compensation for such inferiorities. Individuals' worth and capability are not based on what they have from birth, but how they develop their abilities to suit their goals. Between 1911 and 1914, Adler's ideas were becoming very popular, but during the First World War, he was called up as a member of the Franco-Prussian army to as a doctor, as a field doctor, so he was unable to really develop until the end of the war. But at that point, rather than having lost time, his ideas became increasingly popular. And he focused on developing child care research centers all over Europe and did lecture tours. But as the Nazi Party came to power in the late 20s and early 30s, being Austrian, most of his centers there were shut down and his research was halted. He was born Jewish and had a Jewish family, but was a practicing Catholic. So anti-Jewish sentiment hindered his career and led him to be targeted by the SS. And this led to the decision to immigrate to New York, where he accepted a teaching post in Long Island. But he, during a lecture tour, he passed away in Scotland in 1937. Adler's ideas continued to influence other schools of thought after his death in both psychoanalytic and therapeutic approaches. His approach can be seen at the root of cognitive behavioral therapy, family therapy, existential therapy, phenomenological therapy, schema, humanistic, and person-centered approaches. And some of the core theories of Adlerian therapy, it starts with social interest. All behavior is rooted in social structures and has social meaning. And social interest, which is described as a feeling of cooperation with others in the common social good, is emphasized to diminish feelings of inferiority and destructive behavior. As behavior is rooted in the social, individuals often are driven by a need for significance or belonging. And individuals are unique and should be viewed as a whole rather than in separate parts, unlike Freud's psychic apparatus or Gestalt theory, which states that the individual is a whole of parts. Rather, Adlerian focuses on the idea of a holistic approach. Individuals are goal-oriented, and all behavior and all actions and emotions serve the purpose of bringing individual closer to these goals. And this is where the concept of the inferiority complex comes about, which was first developed by Adler. Adlerian theory believes that it's present at birth in all individuals. The basic feeling of inadequacy and insecurities may be derived from real or imagined deficiencies. And these can be psychological, these can be physical, these can be social or any other place, but they become a driving factor either in healthy or unhealthy ways towards the goals that people seek to accomplish. Adlerian therapy allows for therapists to assist individuals in understanding and working towards these goals while diminishing the influence of the inferiority complex. Individuals have a concept which is a final goal. This is actually in the stages of Adlerian therapy, this would be the second, which when achieved, similar to self-actualization, will overshadow the individual's perceived insecurities or inferiorities. However, pursuit of the goal is as important, if not more, than the goal itself as a driving factor in human behavior and experience. Individuals develop patterns of behavior based on social influence, their individual goals, and their approach to inferiority called the lifestyle. It's a key element of survival and development, maybe anywhere in the spectrum of neutral and neurotic. Adlerian describes it. It can be normal, but there are also elements of the lifestyle that can be destructive. And as the individual develops, so does the lifestyle. And just mentioning on that, and also on the final goal, is that these things, both in Adlerian therapy and how it's addressed with the actual therapeutic approaches, is that they can be fluid and flexible, and the more people become self-aware and how they're working towards these goals, the more they can change to suit a healthy approach. Finally, a private logic is a concept. The private logic is something that everyone has that rationalizes the actions, thoughts, and their emotions. Although initially this could be seen something as another key of self-awareness, rather it's Adlerian therapy seeks to get people closer to the idea of the common sense, which is social understanding, because the more someone's locked up in their private logic, the less they can rationalize their action in the social whole. So moving away from private logic, although we usually have a little bit of it, and learn to understand it, but moving away from that as a primary factor allows us to become less self-centered and more empathetic towards society. Also, a couple of ideas on Adlerian therapy and social justice. A lot of modern writers since the 80s do recontextualize Adlerian therapy in the area of social justice. Obviously, there's a foundational elements of social connection, social awareness, and moving away from individualistic ideas that align itself with the later approaches that develop for social justice. At the time when Adlerian was developing, it actually intersects with many different the same sort of starting points for a lot of different social justice movements, whether it's women's suffrage or opposition to Jim Crow, or more of it operates, sort of directly in opposition to other things that were popular at the time, as things like eugenics and ideas that were more focused on countries' rights and individuals, superiority to others. Adlerian very much works towards this idea that we exist as individuals, not fully aware of the importance that society has and our place in society has, but it's something that we do work towards. So in the therapeutic process and the theory, it can easily be adjusted, or not even adjusted, but focused on that. The more that we develop our place and our connection with social groups and our own society and just our community, we're able to move away from self-centered ideas. We're able to learn more about others' experiences. We're able to become empathetic to things that we didn't experience ourselves. And these all line up with the ideas of social justice, moving away towards racism or systemic elements that targeted certain individuals. And many of the writers that I encountered, or at least theorists in the modern sense, saw this as, not much has to be changed with Adlerian
therapy. It's just really interpreting it in the same way. All the tools are there. Even Adler himself was someone who was, unfairly targeted and had to change where he was, but never changed his ideas or his approach as a humanistic therapy. But I also wanted to put a special emphasis that Kenneth Clark, who was the first African American president of the APA, he used Adlerian therapy he wrote about its approach towards the inferiority complex of African Americans in post-Civil War and Jim Crow that were present in society, obviously from a lot of different, not only the law, but even in entertainment or writings, that a lot of different stereotypes came out about African Americans that became internalized. And Adlerian therapy can be used as a way to break away from these internalized stereotypes and see not only how moving away from these insecurities and inferiorities and focusing on our place with, or rather an individual's place in society, will allow for a better understanding of themselves and breaking away from like just harmful ideas that are placed on them from early situations.
All right, now we're going to discuss some Adlerian therapy techniques. The ones that we're going to talk about is encouragement, style of life analysis, hypothesis interpretation, the question, acting as if, and the push button technique. So, encouragement. Adlerian counseling is a form of treatment with a positive emphasis. Throughout the course of therapy, they encourage patients. According to Adler, many seek therapy because they are dejected and lack the self-assurance to take on various challenges and problems in life. Counselors utilize encouragement to increase their clients' optimism and expectation of success. This method is also utilized to access resources and strengths, create new behavioral patterns, and have more upbeat perceptions. So encouragement technique in Adlerian therapy includes the following: valuing the clients as they are, demonstrating concerns for clients through active listening, focusing on client strengths, assets, and abilities, respect and empathy for the client, helping clients informing perceptual alternatives for discouraging fictional beliefs and oppressive narratives, helping clients distinguish between who they are and what they do, and communicating affirmations and appreciation to the clients. All right, so style of life analysis. Interviews are frequently used by the Adlerian therapist to analyze one's style of life. The analysis can take the therapist 2 to 3 sessions to finish. The therapist will ask the client questions about their relationship with their siblings, their parents' influence, their physical, sexual, and social development as children, their experiences in school, their local community, and their socioeconomic status, among other things, during the interview. Next, we'll talk about hypothesis interpretation. This strategy aims to show the counselor that there are other explanations for the behavior. For instance, the counselor may question the client, could it be that, after the style of life study? This will help the counselor determine whether or not his or her interpretations are accurate. Next is the question. The question, how would your life be different if you no longer had this problem, was developed by Adler and is used in this strategy. This inquiry forces clients to imagine a new environment in which their concerns are no longer a burden. Technique. This technique helps the client to become very aware of their role in maintaining or creating their own and present feelings. This technique takes place in the following 3 phases. Phase 1, in this phase, clients are asked to close their eyes and think of a time in their lives when they felt happy, loved, and successful. They are asked to focus on all the details the feeling evokes. In phase 2, clients are asked to close their eyes and think of an unpleasant memory in their lives. And in the 3rd phase, clients are asked to think of good memories, as in phase 1. After the clients are asked about their experience, They are expected to learn that it's certain thoughts or images that generate certain feelings and can have a profound impact on our mood.
Okay, so next we're going to speak about transactional analysis therapy. So this was created by Dr. Eric Byrne in the late 50s, and this is a psychoanalytic theory. The methods used are to analyze the process of transactions and communications with others. So this can be used in different professions such as nursing, social work, psychology, and as a therapy intervention. Transactional analysis can be used in integrative healthcare to ensure the best quality service for clients. So, Burns' ideas for transactional analysis developed from Freud's psychoanalytic theory that childhood experiences have a great impact on our lives as adults and are the basis for the development of our personalities and psychological or emotional issues that we suffer with. So, transactional analysis helps to improve communication skills and relationships with others while decreasing conflicts. Another pro is that it can be applicable to many social environments, interactions, and many types of relationships. This theory is very versatile. Like I said before, it can be integrated through healthcare and different professions. Now, some of the background that I found was some of the disadvantages of transactional analysis, which is it does require the client to have a good degree of self-awareness and capacity to look at and notice their own behavior, emotions, and thought patterns. And some clients or people may not have this capacity. And especially working in the social work field, we have a lot of clients who are not even that close to being self-aware, and we use our skills to kind of get them there, especially during the treatment process. So luckily, there are interventions and techniques that can aid in providing a client in transactional therapy with what they need to be able to complete the process. Lastly, transactional analysis requires the client to have a willingness and to be motivated to take ownership of their problems and behaviors. So, transactional analysis may not be suitable for everyone.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about transactional analysis key techniques. So we're talking about ego states, unconscious scripts, transactions, strokes, intimacy, and redecision. So in ego states, the main three ego states that make up a person's personality each represent a comprehensive system of feelings, thoughts, and actions. Byrne believed that our childhood experiences, particularly how we are parented, affects the development of our three ego states. So the parent state is rooted in the past. It's a collection of ideas, emotions, and actions we have acquired through our parents and other influential figures. This aspect of our personalities may be constructive or destructive. So the adult phase is rooted in the present. It pertains to immediate, uninfluenced answers in the here and now. This is typically the most logical aspect of our personalities. And the child phase is rooted in the past. It's a collection of ideas, emotions, and actions we learn as children. They may be inhibited, inorganic, or highly adapted to parental influences. And this is just talking about the three ego states again. Parent is behaviors, thoughts, and feelings copied from the parents or parental figures. Adult is behavior, thoughts, and feelings which are in direct response to the here and now. And child ego state is the behavior, thoughts, and feelings replayed from childhood. So next we're going to talk about unconscious scripts. We all have the ability to live the life we want, not the life we are programmed to live. According to transactional analysis therapists, this potential can, however, occasionally be limited in ingrained habits or unconscious scripts that were formed as a result of parental choices and guidance. To recognize these unconscious scripts, TA therapists employ script theory to help clients understand how particular permissions and restrictions they got as children are affecting their lives and how they communicate. These will be analyzed using the ego state model. These subconscious scripts frequently manifest as recurring patterns of behavior, thoughts, and emotions, which is a sign that child ego state is dominating and tainting to the person's other aspects of personality. Transactions. Individuals' ego states interact during communication to produce transactions. Transactions tend to be healthier if the ego states interact and converge in a healthy way, but occasionally ego states can contaminate one another and produce a warped perception of reality. Understanding the differences between plain, crossed up, and ulterior transactions is essential for resolving disputes. Intimacy. Intimacy is a drive that transactional analysis also recognizes. Similar to strokes, issues might arise if a youngster has unhealthy intimacy. Children could discover that engaging in this level of intimacy is the best way for them to communicate with others and satiate their basic needs. This may result in the emergence of recurring behavioral patterns that may limit an individual's potential. Redecision. This is a person's ability to redecide and alter some decisions they made as children, decisions based on unconscious scripts. The presupposition of TA that people have the capacity to conduct their lives as they desire is reflected in redecision. When a client makes a new decision while in their child ego condition, this power is surrendered. In the end, therapists will... What is all these words? I'm sorry. 1 second. What is all these words? In the end, therapists will prod clients to question their existing convictions and the manner in which they live out their life script. They will be able to better comprehend their own life's trajectory and recurring patterns as a result, and this understanding may inspire them to decide to alter their behavior.
So, transactional analysis and social justice.
So Leonard P. Campos has a very well-written paper from 2018 called Meeting the Challenges of a Vengeful World with a Socially Responsible Transactional Analysis. And one of his main ideas is that social responsibility is primarily defined in terms of active engagement with others in the solution of the numerous social problems that plague society, and how TA can be used as a tool and an element to better understand social justice. Another foundational element, of course, can be understood as everyone in the world has a right to exist and to be accepted, which places itself along social justice lines. This was not an original element of transactional analysis, but later on the OK Corral model was adapted. And the concept being that while someone taking blame or both taking blame or someone blaming the other is the usual approach for all problems, looking at it rather that blame is not the issue, but the focus should be on how to move forward from these situations instead of focusing on blame placement. And that can be applied to social justice, again, in a way going against people's developed preconceived notions and prejudices. And this is something that ties back into Adlerian therapy as well.
Okay, so more social justice and transactional analysis therapy. Byrne proposes that professionals using transactional analysis can be social change agents by using their leadership skills and courage to help both formal and informal authority to better understand the obstacles to positive social change and how to break through them. And this is a very strong point because as social workers, we are advocators. We advocate for those in vulnerable populations, and we have a commitment to our clients to do the best that we can to in order for them to have the best quality of service as possible, and for them to get what they need. And so through transactional analysis therapy, this is helping those social determinants or those factors that kind of um, build, barriers around working through self-developing for individuals. So this prevents negative attitudes for clients through the treatment process. The transactions with client and a worker is essential to building a healthy rapport. So to continue on, transactional analysis population can be a compilation of social background variables. Depending on each case, they all can vary within variables such as gender, age, parenting, siblings, education, housing, and employment. Transactional analysis therapy requires many skills from a client. It is not discriminatory, but is inclusive to all who can meet the requirements. Transactional analysis is for those who really need it, but its use can be broadened and more implementation should take place for its utilization to expand across all social backgrounds to ensure inclusivity. So now this is a slide just comparing both of our therapies that we have done our presentation on. So first we'll look at the differences. So first, transactional is psychoanalytic and Adlerian is psychoeducational. Next, transactional requires the client to be self-aware, and Adlerian focuses on social awareness. Lastly, transactional has the ego states that the therapy is built upon, and Adlerian focuses on the holistic approach. And to compare both of them, they both focus on self-awareness. They're both studied by clinicians and professionals of many fields. They both focus on individuals having the ability to produce change in their own lives. So clients have the ability to increase their self-determination and autonomy in both therapeutic interventions, and they're both brief therapy and humanistic.
So special considerations do have to be taken in approaches of both therapies. And Adlerian, success is unfortunately limited by client self-awareness and insight. And beyond a general sense of starting a therapy, you may encounter clients that do not have a lot of self-awareness or insight in certain about what you're trying to approach, but rather that those with specific disabilities or that may not be able to grasp the concepts on an intelligence level, whereas a lot of therapies have developed approaches to keep the ideas broad and understandable even with those with learning disabilities. It does not always have success in Adlerian. Individuals resistant to an emphasis on early childhood social interactions can be resistant to therapy. This is also something that has been present in psychoanalysis or any therapy that really emphasizes the early childhood experience. If someone is resistant, that approach ends up hitting a brick wall. But one of the most important ones that I found is that Adlerian therapy denies the concept of trauma, which is not only increasingly emphasized in the crossover of psychology and therapy into the popular culture, but also a lot of approaches nowadays find that specific approaches addressing trauma and their impact on an individual's coping has a lot of success. Nowadays, PTSD is increasingly diagnosed and as a diagnosis is increasingly helpful for a lot of individuals that may not have seen that approach before. Adlerian does not work within this approach. Early childhood experiences, maladaptive experiences, traumatic experiences, these are all understood to have influence in the Adlerian approach, but they do not determine behavior. Which is, for someone who maybe has PTSD diagnosis, for someone dealing with borderline personality disorder and the way the trauma is works in with that, or someone that just has had experiences that they feel were really heavy and they cope along, or their coping is based on that. Adlerian doesn't subscribe to that, so that would be big. Again, that would be a very those would be very troublesome to try and approach those in Adlerian therapy.
And the special considerations in transactional analysis therapy, first off, would be emotion management. So this is kind of controversial because a lot of our clients have trouble managing their emotions, and transactional analysis kind of requires you to, like, I guess, have yourself together in a sense. Which I'm going to skip the second one and go to the last one. One's degree of self-awareness is like, you need to already be self-aware in order to, go into this therapy, which it can be a pro, it can be a con, but it should be considered to the fact that most clients are not self-aware when going into like their treatment. Saying if transactional analysis therapy was a treatment, most clients may not be prepared for that. So the next one is behaviors in childhood affecting adulthood, which, that's the basis of the whole therapy is your behaviors in your childhood are affecting your adulthood, but it can also not genetic, but it can be a pattern from childhood to adulthood. And I think that should be considered, not so much just that person being so like prepared to go into therapy, but just considering that these traumas haven't been addressed. And I guess you could say Adlerian and transactional have that in common, where the trauma so much is not addressed. It's more like, I guess, creating discipline for oneself, which is a good skill to have and it's a good skill to teach. But we have to find maybe a softer way to kind of manage it, help the clients manage it, especially them going through the traumatic experiences. And these are our references. And thank you all for listening. So now we're going to move on to our role play portion.
All right. Hey, everyone. How was y'all's weekend?
It's good.
Yeah, it was all right.
Okay. Well, Sebastian, I hear you say it was all right. So would you like to share how your weekend could have been better?
Yeah, basically this weekend my wife, I guess at some point in the week I made the promise. Well, I mean, I don't know if it was a promise per se, but I'd stated I would go to Spirit Halloween with her because she's been trying to go for a while. And it's all the way in Slidell, and at the last minute I decided I didn't really want to go, and it upset her.
Okay, and what made you decide you didn't want to go?
Originally I thought it was about how far away it was, but it really wasn't the drive. I just kept thinking about like all the people that were going to be there on the weekend and how busy it was going to be, and the more I thought about how many people were going to be there, the less interested I became.
Yeah. Okay, well, I really appreciate you sharing that with us today. That's a big step in the right direction. So today I wanted to use a new technique with you all called acting as if. It's from Adlerian therapy. And this involves coming up with a few different behaviors, and we can determine as a group, which behavior would suit the situation best. Are y'all interested in using this technique?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. So as a group, let's act as if we have an event in a few days, and let's come up with 3 different behaviors or actions that we all can do when we are wanting to back out of plans we've made.
Okay, so one thing we could do is like get an agenda and write down our plans out so that we can follow through. And then once we follow through with them, we can just scratch them off the list. And that lets us know that like we accomplished those goals.
Thank you, Tina. That was a great idea. I also agree that writing stuff down in an agenda might be a great tool. Seeing that, to-do list and seeing that we can scratch that off is great. So does anyone else have any other behaviors that we can do?
Uh, yeah, maybe, just agree to go to the things that we want to do.
Thank you for sharing. So do you mean just going to events that only you feel like that you feel safe and that you feel like you'll enjoy?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else?
I think preparing yourself for an outing is good too.
Okay. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Like, getting yourself prepared for like the event. So you're going to the event a couple days before, start getting your outfit ready, planning out your day, like you need gas in your car, just stuff to like prepare yourself to go, and then you know that there's no turning back. Like once you've done all that, this is your solidification that I'm going.
That's a great idea, Tamara. These were all great ideas. So Sebastian, do you feel like any of these ideas would work for you next time?
To be honest, planning usually like triggers a bit of my anxiety, seeing lists and a bunch of things I gotta do stresses me out.
Yeah, I can see how that can be a little stressful for, you sometimes. What about the other suggestions like preparing with, outfits or any tools that you'll need for that event or
Well, honestly, I could think of it like only going agreeing to the things, that I really want to do, like really thinking about it. But I also see what y'all are saying. I think maybe next time I need to really prepare and get ready to go, and that way don't have a lot of time to like overthink things and change my mind, because I think a lot of it was really me overthinking. But your suggestions were great. I'm gonna think about those next time something comes up.
all right. All right, so we're going to move into the transactional analysis group therapy. So, hello everyone, how's everyone doing today?
Doing good.
Good.
Okay, good. So today we're going to be talking about active listening. Is anyone familiar with active listening?
I think I am. It means like to really listen, not just hear, like taking it all in, using a verbal and nonverbal cues to give feedback to show the other person you're listening.
Great job, Timmy. That is exactly what active listening is. Can anyone explain to me a time where you had to be a great active listener?
I had to be an active listener at the doctor the other day.
Yeah, that is a good time to be actively listening. So today we're going to be using transactional analysis, this ego states technique to guide our way through situations. Byrne believed that our childhood experiences, particularly how we were parented, affects the development of our 3 ego states. So everyone will have a turn to speak, but we'll start with Maria since you told us about your experience at the doctor the other day.
Okay, that sounds good. But what are ego states?
So ego states are separated into 3 phases. You have the parent, child, and adult. The parent phase is how your parents would handle this certain situation. The child phase is where you act as you would as a child. And lastly, the adult phase is where you would act as you would presently.
Okay. So, okay, for let's see, the parent, if I were to act like my parent, I'd probably, well, okay, can I ask you this? Is it like in the doctor setting? Like if we were in the doctor's office? Or
Yeah, so the situation you were just talking about where you had to actively listen at the doctor,
Mhm.
let's act out as if you were your parent in the situation. Would you be actively listening?
Okay, so if I was my mom in that situation, yeah, I'd probably like half be listening and half just be hearing. More like just being at the doctor, like this is a checkup, but not really wanting to be there. I could kind of see my mom having like anxiety being at the doctor, like she didn't want to be there. So, and I guess I can move into the child. When I was a child, I used to kind of like feed off of her energy. Like I used to be anxious too, being in the doctors, and I guess it can be a cultural thing, or it can just be something she learned when she was younger. But I know when I was a child, I was always like fearful just being in the doctor's office. Um, but presently now I'm just like doctors to doctors. I need to go to the doctors. I need to get my medicine and everything. So I just be sitting there listening because I really be wanting to know what's going on. And I don't think I really did that as a child, and I don't think my mom really did that either, just because she didn't want like half the stuff. Maybe she didn't want to hear. But me being an adult now, I think, yeah, I'm more aware of like what's going on.
Okay, well, that was great, Maria. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. I like that you compared and contrasted to where when you were a child, you didn't really listen that much. You were a kid, but now you were working on your active listening. So who would like to go next? And that's where it would end.